Welcome to week 2, where my hair is dirty, my lighting is bad, and my dog is probably going to be running around in the background. Week 1 is officially in the books, so let's take a look at how this year's openers played out. In their fourth meeting of all time, Jared took down Anna by a score of 152 to 134 on the back of a stellar wide receiver duo in Adam Thielen and Tyreek Hill, who combined for 67 points and won the week's Unreal Combinations Trophy. Anna's team put up enough points to outscore 9 of the 13 other teams, but unfortunately Jared was not one of those teams. Dan and Dave squared off in a classic that was decided by a high-powered battery of Cooper Kupp and Daryl Henderson on Sunday night, as Get Off My Lawn took down Win More Than Natalie 156 to 131. Dan came into Sunday night with a lead, but it wasn't enough to hold Dave off, so the 8th meeting of these teams went to Dave. In their 12th overall meeting, Susan swung the matchup further in her favor by taking down Eric, myself, and the Greene County Gators 135 to 112 on the back of a stunning 38.9 performance from Amari Cooper of the Cowboys. Eric was able to put together a decent showing with Russell Wilson and DeAndre Hopkins both breaking off over 25 points, but his running backs combined for only 6.2 points, due in part to an early injury to Raheem Mostert. There was a glimmer of hope on Monday night, but Marquise Brown simply had too much ground to make up. Natalie and Josie and the Pussycats continued their dominance over Kathy and the Pouty Puppies in week 1. Natalie's now won 7 of the 10 times the two teams have faced off, and this one was a 26-point beating, due in part to the Pouty Puppies receiver Odell Beckham Jr. being scratched less than an hour before kickoff, and a severe underperformance by Saquon Barkley. Natalie put up plenty of points on the back of Nick Chubb and CeeDee Lamb, as well as an outstanding performance from Jalen Hurts. Final score of this one, 124 to 98. Kang made his debut against Caroline, and he did not disappoint. With a huge 62-point start from Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, and Greg Zuerlein on Thursday night, Kang was too much for Caroline to handle, especially with the 15 points from Jamal Williams that were left on her bench. Rachel got out to a rough start in the league as her opening against Eric with a K saw only 3 of her players break double digits. Severe underperformances from Zeke Elliott, Julio Jones, James Robinson, and the Titans defense left only 79.48 points on the board for 911 What's Your Emergency, which was not even close to Eric the Red's 134 points. Catherine started her season with a decent showing against Kyle and Kumquat Calamity, but at the end of the day, an underwhelming performance from Mike Evans was enough to keep her from her first Rfffl win. Between Jameis Winston's 30 points and Jamar Chase's 21, Catherine's bench could have been the answer to Kyle's 121-point performance, but that total comes without any help from Brandon Ayuk, who was scratched with Corey Davis's 26 points left on the bench for Kyle. The final in this one, 128 to 108. 121 to 108. So those were your week 1 results. Let's see where that puts us as we head into week 2. Dave finds himself atop the league for the first time since week 3 of 2018. He's followed closely by Jared, who had never been ranked higher than 4th up to this point. Rounding out our top 6 are Susan, Eric with a K, Kang, and Natalie, with Kyle standing outside the top 6 at 7th. Anna was the highest scoring team to lose in week 1, putting her at 8th, followed in order by Dan, Caroline, Eric, Catherine, and then Rachel. Waivers cleared on Wednesday morning, but before the games began, teams made plenty of moves after I filmed last week's video. Rachel replaced both of her tight ends in Cole Kmet and Jonnu Smith with Albert Okwuegbunam and Jack Doyle. Kathy dropped Cairo Santos and picked up Traquan Smith, as well as Marquez Valdez-Scantling to cover a hole left by Smith, who was later placed on IR. She also picked up Justin Jackson and Damian Williams, and dropped Kyle Juszczyk and placed quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick also in the reserve spot as he is on IR. Myself, I grabbed Tyson Williams to replace AJ Green. Kyle added Devontae Freeman over Anthony Firkser before later changing his mind and taking Firkser back. Eric with a K dropped Gus Edwards and picked up Ramondre Stevenson. Rachel dropped Kenneth Gainwell to pick up Michael Badgley. Susan dropped the injured Curtis Samuel in favor of Adam Humphries. Dan dropped Jared Cook in favor of Dan Arnold, and after the games, Kang dropped the injured Jerry Jeudy, and Caroline dropped the Browns defense. On Wednesday morning, 7 waiver transactions were processed, With her waiver priority advantage, Catherine was the first of 4 managers who tried to pick up Elijah Mitchell of the 49ers, who's slated to pick up the slack left by Raheem Mostert's season-ending injury. She dropped Le'Veon Bell to make room for him. Eric signed Jared Cook to replace Hunter Henry. Dan took Saints tight end Juwan Johnson and dropped Jerick McKinnon. Kyle grabbed Christian Kirk over Tyler Boyd. Eric with a K took Kenneth Gainwell, dropping Russell Gage. And then on the second go-around, Catherine grabbed Tim Patrick for Mike Gesicki, and Kyle dropped Derek Carr in favor of Jared Goff. After the first round of waivers was processed, Eric with a K picked up the Cardinals defense and dropped Ramondre Stevenson, and Eric myself dropped Raheem Mostert. As of Wednesday night, Kang and Rachel still have holes in their lineups, but let's just assume they'll get them ironed out before game time. Speaking of, let's look ahead now to our Week 2 games. Our first big Thursday night matchup features Adam Humphries and Antonio Gibson in action as Susan's squad looks to ride her Week 1 momentum and continue her revenge tour as she takes on Eric with a K in Week 2. Her convincing defeat of Eric with a C checked the first name off the list of managers who beat her last year, and Week 2 puts Eric the Red in the scope. Last year's meeting between the two ended with a 0.72 point margin in Eric's favor. The final of this game was 92.20 to 91.48, and it would have gone Susan's way if Minnesota had let Dan Bailey kick the extra point on their fourth quarter touchdown instead of going for 2 on Monday night. Eric extended his win streak to 9 games last week, and with help from CMC and a hopefully recalibrated Aaron Rodgers, he'll look to make it 10. And NFL.com says he wins this one 128 to 124. In our only other 2-player Thursday night game, Kathy and Dan are lined up for their 6th all-time meeting this week. Both teams are looking to bounce back from rough opening losses, especially Kathy, whose premier receiver Odell Beckham was scratched just an hour before game time and was left in the lineup over Jalen Waddle, who looks like he could be a great choice for a Week 2 starter. Dan will need a good week from Beckham's counterpart Jarvis Landry, who put up about 20 points in Beckham's absence. He'll need a better Week 2 from Josh Allen, though, as the Bills take on a Dolphins defense who struggled against Buffalo last year. Dan leads the all-time series 3-2, and NFL.com says he'll take Game 6, 114 to 110. Rachel will have to shake off her rough Week 1 performance as she looks ahead to her matchup against Sir Nitz-a-Lot. 911 couldn't catch a break last week, but if nothing else, the only place to go is up. She'll need Zeke Elliott to return to form, as well as Julio Jones and Justin Herbert, if she hopes to take down her first Rfffl win. She'll also need a new kicker, with Sam Ficken on injured reserve and Michael Badgley waived from the Titans. Caroline also has a tough loss to shake off after leaving 15 points on her bench that would have made the difference against Kang last week. She's only had one 0-win, 2-loss start in her career, but she's projected to hand this year's 0-2 start to Rachel, as she takes this one 122 to probably about 117 once Rachel gets a kicker. This week we only have one matchup between teams that don't share a record, as 0-1 Catherine takes on 0-1 Catherine takes on 1-0 Natalie in their Week 2 matchup. Catherine left 30 points on her bench last week. I think it was actually 40, including Jameis Winston's 30-point performance against the Packers that would have brought her the win against Kyle's lineup. Natalie, on the other hand, only left 4 points from Emmanuel Sanders on her bench last week and took advantage of a weak and Pouty Puppies lineup to secure her Week 1 victory. Much like last week, Natalie's projections have her losing big in this one, as Catherine takes it 125 to 104. Kyle and Jared meet up for a rematch of last year's regular season face-off, which went to Jared by a score of 156 to 133. Both teams won their season openers, though Kyle was the lowest scoring team to win his matchup, and Jared was the second highest scorer in the league. Kyle will be asking for a heck of an upturn from Derrick Henry's disappointing 10-point Week 1 performance, but he'll also need someone to actually play in his flex spot, so his low-scoring Week 1 should be taken with a grain of salt. Jared just needs a bit more from his tight end spot, which is also the case for anyone else who started a Green Bay offensive player last week. This one could come to DeAndre Swift against Robert Tonyan on Monday night, but NFL.com says Kyle comes up short again, with Jared taking it 126 to 125. We've got this year's first same region matchup as Anna and Dizzy's Dummies take on Eric and the Greene County Gators. Both teams are fresh off of hard Week 1 losses, and they'll try to turn it around this week. Anna has the advantage in the 3 times these two have squared off, which comes from their last meeting in week 3 of last year's postseason, where she won 112 to 89. She'll be hoping for a little more from James Conner and Devontae Adams, but she just needs more of the same from the rest of her squad. Eric's biggest issues from week 1 were his running backs, who combined for only 6.2 points between them. With Raheem Mostert out of the picture, he'll need a big upturn from Aaron Jones and another good week from Tyson Williams to stand a chance against his wife, who's projected to win this one 122 to 121. In our only matchup without Thursday players, Dave moves on to week 2 to fight his second consecutive Daniel as he squares off against Kang. Dave's week 1 lineup was the best in the league despite leaving over 20 points on the bench, so his biggest obstacle going into week 2 is going to be figuring out how to do it again. Kang comes in hot off of a big win over Caroline, and he'll need more from the Brady to Brown connection to take down the top team from week 1. The big difference in the projections in this one comes from the running back spot, where Kang is projected 34 points and Dave is projected only 19. All in all, this one should go to Kang by a score of 113 to 106. Those are all the games coming up this week, and before I go, I should remind you that the projections I'm giving in these videos are from Wednesday afternoon, and they're based on optimized lineups. With that said, best of luck to everyone this week, and I'll see you again next Thursday.